Well, I'm delighted today to be speaking to Werner Gruner, who's a partner at Golden Visa. Welcome, Werner.
Thank you, David, for having me.
So we're going to be talking today about the topic of Americans investing in Portugal. There's lots of factors at play at the moment that are driving them to look at this beautiful European country. We're going to get into that in a second. But first of all, just give us a sense of how you're helping American clients invest in Portugal today.
Well, basically, there are several types of different US families, American families, that are looking at Portugal in different ways. Some of them are just looking at it purely on a lifestyle perspective. They are retiring, they want to move abroad. Some of them, they just want to secure their plan B for the future, so they are still working for a couple of years, and then they want to retire in Portugal. So we analyze different, and we help them to support in different angles. Some are very in a very early stage of their process. Some of them, they just want to relocate tomorrow.
And you've helped many, many clients. Looking through your literature, there was an interesting example of a client, Nancy, that you have been advising recently. Perhaps you could give us a sense of what she came to you for and how you helped her on her journey looking at these options.
Yes, Nancy is a good example. There are other examples that I will gladly share with you, but Nancy is a good example. So she was, I think, during 2021. She decided to have a plan B for herself and the family, because she was having the sense that the US was, in her own words, not the country that she knew for decades. And because of the political instability, the lack of tolerance, so this was one of the main reasons why she wanted to have a plan B, especially in Europe. And Portugal has always been an interesting destination because of several factors. Because it's a small country at the corner of Europe, always far away from any major conflict. Also, English is widely spoken, is one of the safest country in the world, ranked number 7 in the Global Peace Index out of 163 countries. The cost of living, which is much lower than many other countries around the world. So it was a perfect match for someone that wanted a plan B.
And when we say plan B, it's really someone who's not immediately planning to relocate, isn't it? How do you make distinct between those who are looking to relocate abroad today and then those who are more looking for a plan that's more of an insurance, if you like?
Yes, so a plan B is, like you said, it's not for the immediate future, but it will be in 3, 4, 5, 6 years, depending still on each individual case, if they are still working and they will retire in a couple of years. Sometimes the plan Bs become, due to the instability around the world in their specific countries, becomes a plan B plus or A minus, because they want to relocate sooner than they anticipated. Okay.
And so just looking at some of the factors that's driving this push and encouraging people to look at these options, what do you think? The pandemic triggered a lot of thoughts around people worried about the healthcare system, about relying on a passport, what governments can do to restrict movement. What's your insight as to what's driving this from people looking from a healthcare perspective?
Yes, it's a very good point, because the pandemic was in fact one of the main drivers, especially for Portugal. Okay, we always say that Portugal discovered the world 500 years ago, and now the world is discovering Portugal. So with the pandemic, many American families, for the first time, they were restricted in their mobility, so they could not travel to Europe because of the pandemic. So this and mobility is more and more a key word in terms of families that want global mobility to live and to visit whenever they want. So this was the first trigger, the pandemic. Then, of course, there are many factors, especially in the US, that we hear on a daily basis from our American clients is the political instability, is the social unrest, is the lack of tolerance, the racism, the gun violence, healthcare costs, the costs of properties rising. So there are a lot of aspects that are what we consider the push factors.
And on the financial point, I mean, many are realizing that their pension pots aren't sufficiently large, but although a dollar-denominated pension pot goes a lot further in Portugal, how much is people looking at their retirement plans and realizing actually they've got dollar wealth, and that translates to a much better standard of living in retirement in Portugal or outside the US? How much of this financial driven?
As an example, we had also recently a couple from San Francisco. They were living in a one-bedroom apartment. They sold the one-bedroom apartment for $1.5 million. So with that amount of money, they could relocate to Portugal, and instead of a one-bedroom, they bought a three-bedroom apartment. Okay, so this is what we are talking about in terms of value for money.
And then on that healthcare point, I mean, healthcare is very expensive in the US, but it is at a high recognized standard, if you like. What's the sense of the Portuguese healthcare system for looking after people? What's the quality of the outcomes, if you like, for people moving to Portugal in later life?
Portugal has a very good healthcare system. Not only public healthcare, but also private healthcare. Private healthcare has gained a lot of momentum in the last year, especially after pandemic, because not because of you don't find good healthcare, good doctors in the public, but because the times to get a consultation, a surgery, they were delayed in time. This is why many people opted for private insurance. So you will see, for instance, a good private healthcare insurance in Portugal may cost you 1,500 euros per year, which is a small portion what it would cost in the US. So you will see in the next years, I would say in a couple of years, a trend of healthcare tourism. Imagine you are a US citizen, you need to do a simple knee operation or hip operation. Well, it's much better that you go to Portugal, you do the operation there in a nice private hospital, you stay 2 or 3 months recovering, and with a low cost of living, it will be 10% of the amount that you would pay in the US anyway.
Fantastic. We're going to explore some more of those pull factors to Portugal shortly, but just looking at the case of Nancy and when she was making decisions, obviously every individual is making a choice between different options and locations. How in that example did she come to look at Portugal over other places?
Well, in fact, Nancy, she looked at different options like Ireland or Canada. I think what attracted her and the family the most was, first of all, the Portuguese climate. This is very important for someone that wants to have sun. Sunshine is a key factor also for the lifestyle and for well-being of individuals. And then the other reason, which was also very important for them, was security. To be in a safe country and in a tolerant country that accepts everybody. Okay, so these were the main factors for Nancy's decision.
Because on the climate, it's very livable year round. Not everywhere that you could move to for an efficient lifestyle is the same in terms of its climate. It's a very temperate climate.
Correct. And David, there is another example that a couple from California, Paul and Ophelia, they decided to retire in Portugal. Okay, so it was an immediate plan because they wanted to move. Then they had 3 criteria, which was simple criteria. 1, sunshine. 2, golf courses. 3, nice food.
Yeah.
So, and then it was a no-brainer to find them a place, a property in the Algarve, because the Algarve ticks all those boxes. First, more than 300 days of sunshine per year. 2, a lot of golf courses easily accessible. and third, very nice fish restaurants. So it was a no-brainer for them. On top of that, I was recently having a gin and tonic with them in the Algarve, and they mentioned, Werner, on top of this criteria that it matches all of our criteria, we just are 2 hours away driving from Spain. If we were in California, we will still be driving in California. So this is another example.
They can explore the whole of Europe under this opportunity.
Correct.
And what about the connectivity for flights? I mean, do people fly direct into Lisbon to the US? What's the sort of travel patterns, or if they've got family coming to see them?
There are many direct flights from Portugal to the US and vice versa. You have to Boston, you have to New York, you have to Miami, you have to San Francisco, you have to LA. So it's quite accessible.
Yeah. And what about culturally settling in? If people have only lived in the US and they've never lived in Europe, how do you find they acclimatize and settle into life in Portugal?
I think that one of the most important aspects is the families feel very well accepted in Portugal. And this has also to do with our culture, that we like to integrate everybody and we accept very well foreigners. We like to receive people. We like to engage with them. And I think this is something that is well said, but when you live there, you will feel it and you will experience it. Anyway, we had another example of an investor, Jason from Springfield, Missouri. This is also an interesting case because he has a property business, rental property business in the US, and he started to come to Portugal under the Golden Visa program, but then he decided, well, this is an interesting place for me, for my family. The kids are already in college, working. One in college, the other one is already working. So I could spend more time in Portugal, and I could replicate my experience of my rental property business in the US and do it in Lisbon and Porto. And the property management team is already in the US, so I don't need to be there every day. So, and what he's doing right now is to replicate his business in the US in Portugal, in the two main cities.
Fantastic. And what are the entry routes for people considering this move, either on a sort of plan A basis, i.e. they want to be moving and relocating to become a resident, or on the plan B basis? How do people assess the right route for them?
Well, this depends a little bit on the family goals. Sometimes families want to relocate, plan A's, and then plan A's are a little bit more complex because it involves, if they have children, schools. So one of the first decisions is to visit international schools, either English speaking or French, Spanish, German, to understand where the children could study. And then, of course, the relocation with finding the right property, acquisition or rental, then helping them with the utilities, insurance, all these small things that are sometimes a little bit complicated for someone that wants to relocate. But our team is gladly supporting them and helping them. Plan B is more for some families that do not want to relocate. They just want for themselves and for their families a plan B if something happens in their country because of instability, of security, of violence. They want a plan B, like a safe harbor if they need. But their businesses, the friends, the families are in their local country and they do not want to move, at least immediately. But this is the situations where a plan B sometimes becomes a plan B plus or A minus.
And there are options to invest in funds, in real estate. Perhaps tell us what the different entry routes are, because there's been some change in this area.
Correct. Well, if you just are as a family, you want to buy a property in Portugal, you may do so. There is no restriction at all. You can even have a mortgage. So it's a completely transparent market.
A holiday home, just
Correct.
Yeah.
Just to spend a couple of weeks or
Yeah.
a couple of months throughout the year to take advantage of summer in one side and some summer on the other side. So it's completely transparent process. For the Golden Visa, like Plan Bs, then there are basically two options that investors are following. Either the fund investment route or the cultural donation route. Real estate is no longer an option. Since October 23, the government restricted investments in real estate directly or indirectly. So the main investment option is the fund investment route, either in closed-ended funds like private equity or venture capital funds, or open-ended funds like the mutual funds in the US in the amount of 500,000 euros. And this is mainly the route that the majority of investors are following. I would say 98% of the investors follow that route. Then there is a second route, which is the cultural donation. The amount is lower, is 250,000 euros donation to a arts foundation, historical foundation, museum. So it's an entry level. For someone that doesn't want to spend that much money in a Plan B, and around 2% of the investors follow this route.
So the 98% are investing in Portuguese companies through funds.
Through funds.
And how do you help investors understand which funds are a sound investment? I mean, people are doing this in order to achieve a broader array of benefits, but they obviously don't want to lose their capital as such.
Correct.
So how do you help them de-risk that decision?
Well, this is basically what we have been doing, especially through the fund route since 2019. So we were one of the first players to offer the fund route as an alternative to real estate when nobody was doing that.
So you're well positioned for when that change
Exactly.
came.
So we placed investors in over 60 different funds, over 200 million euros in capital raised. So we know the market quite well. This always depends, and David, we have always had throughout the years the same question from investors. Oh, what is the right fund for me? What is the most interesting Golden Visa eligible fund to invest in? And our answer is always, it depends. Now, it depends on each individual strategy. So it depends on the sectors that you like, on the sectors that you don't like, what is your risk profile, if it is conservative, moderate, aggressive, what type of returns are you looking for? So each case is a case. So we need to understand very well the risk profile of our investors and then suggest tailor-made investment strategies according to their risk profile. We always say that there are funds that we call them vanilla ice cream funds. Nothing against vanilla, but vanilla is a boring conservative ice cream that everybody likes, but don't expect much from vanilla. Then there are the funds in the market that are more salted caramel or pistachio that is not for everybody's taste, potential more risk, potential more profit. So there is a variety of, let me say, fund flavors between vanilla and salted caramel. Okay.
And what's the amount of capital that you need to put in the funds in order to qualify on the visa?
You need to invest at least 500,000
Yeah.
in one or more qualifying funds. We are big fans of diversification.
Yeah.
We always suggest our investors to spread the investment across multiple funds to diversify risk. In fact, 99% of our investors, they diversify in 2, 3, or 4 funds, being the average 3 funds per investor.
And what kind of period do they hold the investment for, and how does that link to the visa application process?
Well, this is a good point because you need to be invested throughout the whole Golden Visa period. So in terms of the open-ended funds, there is no problem in terms of maturity because the funds are perpetual, so there is not an end date. In terms of the closed-ended funds, there is a maturity date, so an investor must be sure to invest in a fund which the maturity matches their own Golden Visa life cycle.
And obviously, there have been changes to the Golden Visa regime. Are you confident now the regime you're operating within gives certainty to investors? Is there an incentive for those who come in now under this regime because it allows them to qualify with the known variables? What's your read on things might change in the future? What's the sense of what people should do now?
Well, things are already changing as we speak because Portugal is increasing the citizenship path from 5 to 10 years. And this is happening right now. Is it interesting? Well, if I had applied a couple of years ago, would be more interesting. Now, but if I look, I always like to see the positive angle of things. And in fact, if we compare Portugal with other Golden Visa programs in Europe, such as the Italian Golden Visa or the Greek Golden Visa, Portugal still is the most attracting Golden Visa program, in my opinion. And the main reason is because you can apply for citizenship without living in Portugal. And this is you only need to be in Portugal on average 14 days every 2 years. That is basically a holiday in family. And in other countries like Greece, you need to live there for 7 years, or in Italy, you can apply after 10 years, but you need to live there 5 years at least. So still, although the path to citizenship has increased slightly, it still is, in my opinion, the most interesting Golden Visa program because you do not need to live there.
And just coming back to the American kind of examples, obviously people might go with a plan B plan with no intention to necessarily leave immediately, but politically the country, it could escalate very quickly, couldn't it, the situation that we're in. Do you see there an advantage for people looking now, because to get the wheels in motion takes some time, and if things escalate or the situation deteriorates there quickly, why should people take action today, even if they're not intending to make a move immediately?
It's a good point, David. We see throughout the years, and especially, the world is not becoming a better place. We see a lot of political instability in many countries of the world. Freedom of speech is an issue right now. We see wars like in Ukraine and Palestine. So there are many uncertainties right now, and this is why it's driving more and more families to go to a plan B. And of course, it takes time to analyze which is the right plan B for me and my family. Where should I potentially relocate if I need to? What are the minimum investment thresholds? Who can support me on that? What are the legal and tax implications? So the sooner you start analyzing all these aspects, the better it is.
And clients are really looking for that peace of mind, aren't they? It's that option that they're able to buy for a relatively modest sum, given the wealth that's held within individuals in the US. It's a very wealthy place. Do you think that what they're really buying into is that sense of peace of mind?
This is basically it.
Yeah.
They want to sleep well at night, thinking that if there is any urgency, they can easily relocate to their plan B location with their families. And this is what they want, is to sleep well at night. This is basically it.
So then, if we have any American viewers watching this, what's your main piece of advice for them to take away from this content?
First of all, I would say contact us. We will gladly sit down with you and with your family, discuss what are the different opportunities, the different plan Bs, which is the best solution for you based on your investment, based on your location, based on your goals. This is the most important aspect. And we will define together what is the best solution. And then we will gladly support you. And because we are dealing with US families since 2019, so we have gained a lot of experience from families from all over the US, and we can clearly see logical patterns in terms of their investment decisions and plan B options.
And you've got a lot of other resources as well, your white paper. There's lots of things that people can look at, and they can benefit from your experience.
Correct. And we also have a business, Get Properties, where we act as a buying agent. So we can also help our clients in terms of finding the best properties, the best houses for them. And also with the property management department, we make this transition very smoothly.
Fantastic. Well, look, great to talk to you today, Werner, and we look forward to sharing this interview.
Thank you for having me.